Okay. Okay, so once again, my name is Maggie Cardosi, and I'm the regional manager for North America for University College Cork. I am based in the United States out of Western New York, so in the Eastern time zone. And I am here really in your time zone or a little bit closer than Ireland anyway, to act as a resource for you as you continue on your journey to studying with us. So you are more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. And if I don't have the answer that you're looking for, I can likely find somebody who does. So I have Ruth and Colette here, Colette from the College of Arts, Ruth from the International Office. They are my colleagues who really help throughout this process as well. So I have all of our contact information on our final slide. So you'll have all of our information together and you can find us easily for whenever you need us. We also have some fantastic current students here. So really quick, if I could get whoever's in the room who's currently a postgrad student at UCC just to come off mute real quick and introduce themselves, that would be awesome. And then I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do, and then we'll get into the good part.
Hi, my name is Parish. I was actually on this same call a year ago. So I'm really happy that I can be back and be here in case anyone had questions. It was really helpful for me last year. So I'm happy to be here. And I'm studying creative writing, getting my master's. And yeah, it's been an amazing year, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions, or if anyone has questions about the creative writing program, they can email me.
Hi,
Hi,
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
hi, I'm Callie. I'm getting my MA in anthropology, and I was not on this call last year, and I was very confused afterwards. So I'm hoping to help people avoid some of that confusion.
Hi, I'm Lee. I'm getting my master's in arts management and creative producing, and I actually already have a master's in theater from UCC. And yeah, I'm really happy to answer any questions. I've been here about 4 years. I'm from New Jersey originally, and I know it can be a tough adjustment, but I think it's really worth it. Ireland's great.
Okay. Anybody else in the room? Last chance to come on mic. All right. Cool. All right. So we will crack on, as they say. So really quickly, here we go. So we've introduced ourselves already. So what we're going to do today, and I'm going to breeze through the kind of formal bit of this because I think the most important part is for you all to ask your questions of the current students and then also have those of us who work on kind of the UCC side of the desk to kind of answer your questions live. So I promise I won't bore you to death with slides, but just a couple of things for you to take away. Colette, if you maybe you could just give like a quick intro to the College of Arts, just for anybody who may not be too familiar, and then we'll roll into kind of what everybody should be thinking about or some FAQs around kind of immigration, housing, finances, things like that.
Great, thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so the College of Arts, Celtic Studies and Social Science, it's the largest of the four colleges in the university. We have 10 schools spanning 30 subject disciplines. So at a postgraduate level, we have over 90 postgraduate taught programs, so really covering everything. And I guess the real thing is just the research-led teaching. We have a huge number of academics that have won multi-million award grants for their teaching. We have research-led and practitioner-led teaching and great facilities at University College Cork. So you really get a variety of teaching. And just in terms of rankings, we are ranked highly in a number of the schools as well. So that's just top line for our college within the university.
Well, thank you, Colette. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the FAQs that we tend to get this at this time of year, and we can delve into more in-depth questions a little bit later. But just to give you an idea on things like housing, health insurance, immigration, and finances, you know, that the whole group might be kind of thinking about. So generally speaking, and I may have Ruth talk a little bit about this later once we get into the Q&A. For housing, there are a lot of different accommodation options in Cork City. If you're not aware, Cork is a very walkable city, and most of the housing, if it isn't walkable of the main campus, it's definitely on a bus line that can get you in and out of the city center quite quickly. Not too bad. And public transportation in Cork is very cost effective and fairly reliable as well. So there are a few different styles of accommodation. We have purpose-built student accommodation, which would be private housing. It looks like student apartment blocks, but you'd have your own room, likely your own ensuite bathroom, and you would share your apartment with probably approximately, five or so other students who also study in Cork as well. These would have kitchens. Some complexes may even have their own gyms and study areas. It just kind of depends. You can also look into the private housing market in terms of flat shares, those kind of private rentals that we would do often here in the United States. So it just depends on your personal preference. And the link that I'll share with you later that goes to our residential services webpage has a lot of information on how to, the different types of private student accommodations, the other private marketplace options, and things like that. So just so you know, we have that there for you, and we have some resources that you can start to look at. In terms of health insurance, as part of your requirement to get your residency card to stay in Ireland for your year of study, you have to show proof of private health insurance. Your US insurance plan might satisfy this, but you can also purchase private insurance in Ireland that will satisfy the immigration requirements. And we do have links to, what those particular requirements are, and some links to some of the private health insurance companies that many of our international students use. So again, I'll send that on to you later. When it comes to immigration, you do not need a visa to enter Ireland if you are a citizen of the United States or Canada. However, you will need to register with the Immigration Bureau within anywhere from 30 to 90 days of your arrival in Ireland. This residency permit that you'll receive will allow you to work part-time and will also allow you to travel outside of Ireland for that full year of study. Potentially Ruth can talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes. But again, the resources that we'll send to you will have a lot more in-depth information. But I think the main thing to remember right now is there isn't anything that you have to do in terms of registering for an entry visa, because you don't need one. You do everything you need to do once you step foot in Ireland. And finally, a quick note on finances. So when it comes to tuition payments, they can be paid in 2 installments due at registration in August, and then again for the second semester in January. Housing payments are made separately, just kind of depending on how you decide to do your housing. And then you can also utilize US federal loans for to help out with both your tuition and living costs. We have a landing page that gives you more information on how to utilize those loans and how to navigate that process that I'll send on to you. So just a couple of quick notes. And let's see, just a quick question on proof of address for INIS. I think you do need to have like an Irish address for that. And actually, Ruth, if you're keeping an eye on the chat and you can, oh, you've already done it. Never mind. Thank you. All right. So that's that. So those are kind of those quick little questions that I mentioned. So I think maybe we will move over to our Q&A portion. And this is the page that I'll send on to you all later. But yeah, if you want to pop questions into the chat, and actually while people are putting questions in, maybe if my current students, if you can come back on, Mike, just introduce yourselves one more time, tell us what you're studying and where you're from, and also what attracted you to coming to Ireland and UCC. That would be a great icebreaker, and then we'll get going with the rest.
So I'm Lee. I'm studying currently arts management, creative producing, and I already have a master's in theater from UCC also. I'm from New Jersey, in the US. And actually, the thing that initially made me want to study UCC, I had one of my childhood best friends got her undergrad at NUI Galway. And it was during the pandemic, and I just graduated college. And she was like, well, I know like you don't know what to do. Like, obviously, there's not any jobs because of the pandemic. And she was like, but I think you really like Cork. Like, it's a really good sized city. It's not too small like Galway, and it's not too big like Dublin, and it's a really cool scene. And I was like, yeah, it sounds good. And I applied and I went a bit on a whim, and it ended up being the best decision I've ever made. So that's kind of my story of how I got here.
Um, I'm Parish, and I'm getting my master's in creative writing. And I came to UCC because Cork is an amazing place if you want to be a writer. There's a lot of writers and a lot of people always coming out with books and literary events over the city. And I really liked the program and the professors, and it's been great so far.
And I'm Callie. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States, and I am getting my MA in anthropology. And what kind of attracted me to Ireland and UCC is UCC has a very well-respected anthropology program in Ireland, and kind of the field of anthropology that I wanted to study is very much a big thing in Ireland. So it all kind of worked out that I was able to come and study here.
Awesome. Thank you all. I'm going to try to pull out some questions from the chat, specifically for students. I think one that's probably a big one. So tell us a little bit about your accommodation, where you're staying, and how you went about finding it, and any advice you would have for those of us in the room who are currently looking for accommodation in Ireland.
So
Um,
I went the private way of like, um, I live in just like a flat share, and it's worked out great for me. I got pretty lucky on the UCC student pad website where it has, I think, I'm not sure exactly of the process, but I think that
Hmm.
UCC like kind of vets all of the places that get listed on there as like legitimate and a good spot for students and everything like that. And so that's kind of just like a, regular apartment in the US. And it worked out really well for me. I'm really happy with it. It doesn't have like any of the amenities or anything like that, like you might find in like Yugo is kind of one of the big like companies that have more like what you might be used to in like a school dorm. But if you don't need any of those amenities and you're fine with just like a bed, like a place to sleep, I think that that's a totally legitimate way and a good avenue to explore.
so what I did is they sent last year at this exact time in April, they sent me, I think the international student on the UCC website, if you go to housing, it has a list of on-campus accommodation and off-campus accommodation. I missed the slot for on-campus accommodation or university housing. So I looked at the off-campus accommodation and I went through and signed and emailed every single place to try to get in. Um, and at this time of year, a lot of places were full. Most places were full. Um, I emailed them again and I got this place that I'm in right now, Sheraton Lodge, on my second email. So I would say start now, be persistent, don't be too picky. Um, I mean, you can be picky, but when you're trying to hear back and get a place, I would just go straight down the list. make sure it looks okay to you, but the list that is on the UCC website is going to be really helpful. And it has the phone number. I believe it even has the distance from the college. Um, so yeah, I would do that. I would, if it's possible, it's nice to find places that are either close to the college or close to the city center. That will make your life easier. Um, and yeah, I would just be persistent and keep emailing and calling if you can, because that's what worked for me.
Jane, I see
Can
that
I
you
say
have your
something?
hand up.
Oh, yeah. I'm a student who's coming next year, and as soon as I sent my application in, I went online and I looked at student housing. So I actually have a little studio in a Yugo housing place called the Bottle Works, and I know that they have one sort of little studio left. Everything else seems to be waitlisted at this point. But I would hop on that right away if you could, and at least start inquiring. I had an agent or somebody I work with, and they sent me the contract, and you have to have a guarantor and stuff like that. But I'm in because I was just worried about like living on the street or something if I couldn't find them, going from hotel room to hotel room or something like that. So I would, my experience is I would hop on it right away as someone who just got accepted and is coming next year. So that's my 2 cents.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you, Jane. If I might ask, maybe Ruth, since we have quite a lot of questions about housing in the chat right now, maybe can I ask you to pop on and just give some general advice kind of around budget or how to navigate this process? I see a couple of questions about bringing pets. So maybe if I can ask you to break in for a moment and offer your sage advice, and then we'll pop over to some more student questions.
Um, well, with starting off with pets, pets are always a challenge. So our current students, I'm sure, will know that from, being friendly with people in private student complexes and being in private student complexes themselves. They're always a challenge. Any of the private student complexes generally won't accept pets. Now, look, we'd always say like reach out to our accommodation office. The email address, I think I put it in the chat, is resservices@ucc.ie, and they'd be the best ones to advise on that. So accommodation in general at the moment, it will feel very much like a challenge. Um, Sourcing accommodation. And as Jane just said there's probably one last, studio left there now in the Bottle Works.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is the kind of time that all the Irish students as well will be booking up rooms all over the country, holding on to rooms with deposits. They might have, they might be looking at UCC, they might have an application in, they might have one in Dublin and one in Limerick. So this is the real kind of bottleneck time for rooms in Cork. So things will open out. They really will, especially around August time. And I know that's quite late. I know that sounds quite late for you, but around that August time when the Irish students get their offers, loads of rooms come up in Cork again. So as Paris said, definitely take that advice. Have a look at the list of private student complexes, be emailing them, calling them, and just asking them, can I please be on a wait list? And if you're looking for the private student complexes, or sorry, private housing, student pad, you can register for that now. So you can be looking at options there now, and they will get more and more landlords and homeowners putting up rooms between now and the start of the academic year. Be careful if you're looking at, because I know, if you're a postgrad student, you might think, oh, I don't want to be in, I suppose a dorm style housing. I might want my own house or my own apartment. Just be really, really careful of scams. Really, really careful of anything really on Facebook. Student Pad, as one of our current students says, I used to work in the accommodation office and we do our best to vet them. We at least check out that the address is real. A lot of those homeowners and landlords we'd have relationships with that go back years and years. We talk to them on the phone. We don't go out to look at the houses ourselves, but we do our best to make sure that they're definitely not a scam, for example. The Students' Union as well, if you use Facebook, and I know not a lot of people do anymore, they do have a group, and I'll put it in the chat. It's called UCC Accommodation Search. You have to be a UCC student to post about a house or a room.
and you have to be a UCC student to join that group, and it's vetted as well by the welfare officer in the Students' Union. So loads of students will start to put rooms up there, and they'll, like moving out of my house, looking for 2 more postgrad students. So that's very much peer-to-peer, student to student. So it's called UCC Accommodation Search on Facebook. So that's another good one as well. But you should all over the coming weeks as well all get an email with a link as postgraduate students from our accommodation office to fill out, just so they have your details, they have an idea of your budget, and they will do their best then to try and get you an offer. So that's going to come to you over the coming weeks, but just keep in contact with our accommodation office anyway, they're great. And then just to get an idea of price, it can vary wildly. It was a room in a house at the moment in a shared student house in Cork could be, and correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember, was it Kaylee? That was maybe in a shared house? Yeah, you correct me if I'm wrong now. I would say around about 700 a month, round about maybe, for a room in a
Yeah.
house share. Yeah, does that sound
Mhm.
round about right? Yeah.
Yeah, like 700 to 800, I think is pretty normal.
700 to 800, yeah. And then private complexes can go anything from, I suppose, like a room and campus accommodation, like 700 to 850, right upwards to some of the complexes like that Jane mentions there, depending on the room type, about 1,000, 1,100, and more if you're looking for a studio. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much. So my students, if I might actually ask you to kind of describe what a basic day in life is like for you when it comes to balancing your schoolwork, your whether you're working, as well as maybe some, extracurricular activities. Just what does it look like? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? And I'm gonna pick on who am I gonna pick on first? I'm gonna pick on Parrish first because I see you, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I have 2 days of class a week. So I'm in class on Monday and Tuesday, pretty much all day. Um, and then I spend a lot of my other time, honestly, like the pace of life in Cork is lovely. I feel like my days are full, but I'm never really stressed. And I have time to socialize, and I have really engaging meetings and conversations with my friends, most of whom are in my master's program. I'm also doing a work placement at a local secondary school, so I'm there once a week doing a creative writing workshop. On the days when I'm not in school, I actually go swimming for exercise at the Mardyke Arena, which I recommend you go to. It's the gym here, so that's free for students. And then I just spend the rest of my time reading and writing and doing homework um, and working on my projects. So yeah.
And Parrish, real quick, there was a question kind of around the creative writing
Mm,
program. So if you could
of
just say a
course.
little bit about your program, and anything else that you want to share for anybody who's potentially looking to join the program.
Yeah, the program, sorry, I can't see your particular question, but the program, it's been amazing. I think if you're able to have the time in your life to focus on like your art in that way for a full year, um, then you should take that opportunity. I think Cork is the best place to do it because um, it's a great city because it's a very manageable size as the city. So it feels like you can really focus on your writing. And there's a ton of writers here. There's a literary event almost every week. It's honestly feels overwhelming at times. Just the scene here is fantastic. the professors are really good, and there's quite a lot of international students in the creative writing program. Um, and it's about 25 of us in the cohort. And yeah, I'm happy. I don't know how many of you are interested in that particular program, but I put my email in the chat.
Oh,
Um, and if anyone wants to talk with me on the phone or anything, I'd be happy to. You can email me. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have about it because I went in really not knowing anything at all. I find it a little hard to find information about how it's structured and everything.
mhm.
So I went in to that master's a little bit blind. So I'd be happy to spell some more things out for anyone who's interested. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Parrish. All right, Callie, I'm going to
Mhm.
pick on you next because I see you next, and then we'll kick it over to Lee. So if you could tell us maybe, yeah, a little bit about, what a day in your life looks like these days.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to quantify like what does a postgrad's life look like because I think it does really depend on your program. Like I have some friends in other programs who have, they take 5 classes a semester and have class 5 days a week. I'm over here. I take 3 classes a semester and I have class 2 or 3 days a week, depending on the week. Um, but it's all been very manageable. Um, what's been really nice is like the people at UCC and the people in Cork in general have all been very like sociable. Like, it's really scary to come to a new place and not know. Every time that I would tell people I was coming here, they'd be like, "Oh, are you like moving with a friend?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just going. I don't know anyone." But I've been able to meet a lot of friends, and so, some days after class, I'll go out and we'll hang out with my cohort, or I'll go hang out with some of the other international students that I met through international events. Um, and so, yeah, the day-to-day life very much is dependent on your program, and I think it depends. Like, I like to be busy, so I find things to occupy myself with. But I've never been so overwhelmed or anything like that that I'm not able to have plenty of time for like self-care and like going grocery shopping and cooking and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very manageable, very nice. And at the same time, like we have plenty of resources for social time, for rest time, for all this kind of stuff is all totally available.
Thanks, Callie. All right, Lee, you're up. Tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day life looks like.
Yeah, so my program right now I'm doing is quite intense. So it's more, I'd have class like pretty much all day, 4 days a week. And we're programming a festival at the Opera House, which is the biggest theater in Cork. So it's a bit of an intense program, but um, it's really worth it because we are making a lot of connections. We're having really we have a work placement in the summer, so I think it's intense, but it's really good in terms of like getting jobs after graduation. My first master's I did was in theater in 2020, and I initially was in student accommodation, working a part-time job, and then I worked here for 2 years on a 1G visa, and then I went back to school because I decided I wanted to stay in Ireland. Um, I definitely agree with what the others were saying that the work-life balance is a lot better in Ireland than it is in the States. Um, if I my best piece of advice would be to like put a lot of effort into community and making Irish friends, learning about the culture, uh, because right now I feel like I have a really good community in Cork through joining clubs, building up my hobbies, making those connections in Cork. Yeah, so I feel like I'm very busy with the masters, but I still have a lot of time with friends. Going to different events around town. It's quite an artistic city. There's a lot of things going on. And also if you get the chance to travel to like West Cork, countryside, Dublin, like Ireland has a lot to offer, basically.
That's great. I can't agree more. And I don't live there. I just visit a lot, but I always find something that brings me back that I want to explore more. But anyway, Lee, you mentioned that you had stayed on kind of that graduate visa before. What does that process look like? When you graduate with a master's, how do you avail of that kind of two-year stay back visa? Because I think we had at least one, if not more, questions about that in the chat come up.
Yeah, so it's actually really easy. So basically you get 2 years
Mm.
after, and each year, so after you finish your master's initially, you have to go apply. So it used to be you would apply in Cork, but they recently changed it, so you have to apply in Dublin. So for 3 years I applied for my immigration appointments in Cork, and I was able to do it here. But for this year I had to go up to Dublin. Um, but I think if you are doing a recurring immigration appointment now, you can do it online, which is nice. I would say that it's €300 for to renew the specific registration for the 1G visa, and you have to show proof that you've like applied to jobs and have tried to get work in terms of getting a sponsorship. Like so basically when I came in the States, if you have a master's in theater, you can work at a university level as a theater professor, but in Europe it's different. You have to have a PhD. So I just worked in like publishing for 2 years. I kind of worked remotely, but it wasn't something that I could get a sponsorship for. So the 1G visa made it really easy because basically you can do any job you like. You can work legally. Um, yeah, and then now I'm hoping that with this different master's, I'll be able to get a sponsorship and stay longer. And then you need 5 years total. So your year as a student, when you're in school, it doesn't count towards. So if you're looking for Irish citizenship, you need 5 years total living and working in Ireland. But your time as a student doesn't count, but the 1G visa time does count. So it's really great. I mean, I definitely would go forward with it. 'Cause it basically allows you to work in Ireland for 2 years without needing a specific sponsorship.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
And if
no.
I Yeah, and actually, so this is actually a great question. This kind of goes back to what you were all saying about kind of what your daily life looks like. But is there something that was like particularly different about kind of your daily life in America versus what you're seeing in Cork? I'm trying to scroll back to find the exact question, so I hope I got it right. But I guess I would also add anything in particular that surprised you about the kind of the transition of coming to live in Cork as opposed to living in the United States. And let's see, you know what? Callie, I'm going to pick on you first because I haven't picked on you first yet.
Um, I would say it's definitely slower than most places in the US, and obviously that kind of varies based on where you're from. I was born in St. Louis and then did my undergrad in Chicago. Um, and so going from super urban Chicago, 3 million people, to Cork was definitely a big change, and not a bad change, just something I definitely had to get used to. Um, so from, what I was used to now, it's definitely a much like slower pace. Like, oh my God, the biggest thing that nobody told me is that like if you need something answered, like if you need a question answered and you're able to like go to a place and ask a person face to face, do that because it's going to be so much more effective than sending an email like 90% of the time. So like I had a lot of difficulty with financial aid stuff, just in terms of getting everything transferred over correctly. And I sent so many emails to the financial aid office, and it was, I had like several email threads with them. And then I went to the financial office when I got here and I like sat down at the desk and I'm like, please help me. And we were able to get it sorted out that day. So like that was one thing that was the biggest adjustment because I was really scared of going and talking to people face to face. But like that has been um, one of those things that once you learn it and you do it a couple of times, that you're like, okay, it's not scary. These people want to help you. It's just a matter of like getting over that hump. That was kind of a big adjustment for me.
Thank you. Parish, you're next.
Yeah. Um, I really agree with everything Callie said. I think you are really right about the in-person thing and also just about the slower pace of life. Um, a lot of times I felt things were much easier than I expected based on having lived in the US compared to living here, but that could be different from from for everyone. I find there's like a certain like ease of life here, and also it's a much smaller country with a lot less people. So that feels different. Just the scale of everything took some getting used to because I had lived in New York City for a while before I moved here. Um, yeah, yeah. I can't think of anything else.
And Lee, do you have anything to add to that?
I definitely would think that culturally it is quite different, and it did take me a while to adjust. I'd say it was about a year before I felt like I fully understood the culture because communication is very different as well. I'd say Americans can be quite, depending on where you're from, obviously, because America's gigantic, but uh, Americans can be quite direct, quite blunt. And generally speaking, in Ireland, things are a little bit, people are very polite, very friendly, and maybe not quite as in your face about it. You kind of have to go about things in a bit of a more gentle way. Um, but once you get through that barrier of understanding the culture, understanding the way that people communicate, Irish people in general are very warm and very loyal. I have a load of friends, very friendly. But yeah, it does take it is an adjustment period, and I think when I first started, there was a presentation by the international office talking about like the stages of like living in a different culture. And there's like 3 months of like the honeymoon period where you're like, everything is amazing, everything is so much better. And then 3 months where you're like, everything is terrible, this is too different, I'm really upset, I can't connect with anyone. And then it kind of just gets back to the level where you're like, things are different and there are a lot of great things about this culture and things I miss about other culture, but I think you kind of get to a point where you're able to assimilate better and understand better. And I think for me, the work-life balance was huge. I mean, in America, I had three jobs from the time I was 16 until I got here. And then I was able to have one job. And the approach to work is very different. It's not as much like your entire identity. And it's encouraged that you take your lunch break, you finish work on time. Whereas in America, I think it can be quite intense and very much more your identity in terms of work culture. So that was something I really enjoyed. Also, I popped my email and my number in the chat if you have any other questions too. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, Lee, I just want to say I really agree with what you said about the 3 months, then the 3 months. I think if you're coming in August, you're going to come at the end of the summer, the beautiful
Mhm.
long days with the summer. And then in November, it's going to get very dark, very early. And it's going to be dark when you wake up, and it's going to be dark when you get home. And just be prepared for that. I think that's the hardest part of the year, especially if you're coming from a place with more light. And then some time will pass and you'll get more used to things and you'll realize like what an amazing place you're in. And you can kind of go back to that honeymoon phase at times. So
Vitamin D supplements, very important.
everyone should take those no matter where they live.
That's such good advice. And I live in New York State, so I can kind of sympathize with the long, dark winter. Um, So I want to ask you kind of your advice when it comes to practical kind of moving around the city. Where, and I know this depends on where in particular you're living, but when it comes to like grocery shopping, where do you go? Um, what advice would you have for those of us who are looking to, not be ordering in every single night of the week? Anybody can jump in. I'm not going to pick on you this time.
Um, I would say maybe the like Lidl is great for budget shopping for the supermarket. Lidl is great. Tesco is great. There's a Centra near me and I go there all the time, but it's a smaller one and it's very convenient. Because it's very convenient, it's also a lot more expensive. And then there's a lot of little small businesses, fruit and veg um, shops. Cons is a great one near campus, Cons Fruit and Veg, although I believe they're closing down in May. And there's also a lot of smaller Asian food stores that you can find in the city center. Um, you can find a lot of smaller stores with more international products. And then for main things you might need, I would go to to Lidl or Tesco. Yeah.
Yeah, Aldi's a really good shout for really cheap groceries. There's one near my house that I go to all the time. The English market is amazing. Their meat in particular, really cheap, and really good quality. Uh, and then some of their like they have like more specific spices. Their eggs are really cheap. Also, if you can get a Tesco card, really worth it. They have really good deals.
Mm.
That's great. Along the same lines, not we're going to switch over to transportation. And in terms of like advice about navigating public transportation, are there any like particular apps that are helpful, or how do you guys deal with that?
So they have the like Leap card, um, which you, as long as I've been using it correctly, you have to like kind of put a certain amount of money on your Leap card. But if you get like the card itself rather than just like paying individually every trip, you can register as a student and it like halves the price. So I would really recommend that. But also like quite honestly, for me personally, if I'm staying in Cork, like it's got to be a pretty bad walk for me to not just walk it. So like it's such an easy walkable city that like the Leap card is good if you have to. I'll use like my Leap card if I'm going to get groceries and I don't want to carry them back, or like if I'm going more than like a couple kilometers. But if it's just like, I don't mind walking for the sake of walking, and all the stuff kind of right around Cork is so, even if you go, like I've walked over to like, um, I can't remember. It's either Black Rock or Blackpool Castle, but there's a castle a couple kilometers away from the city center. And like I had like a free Saturday and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna walk over there. And it was very easy, like sidewalk the whole way. Um, so yeah, the Leap card is there. I would definitely recommend registering for the student Leap card because it goes from like a 190 to like 65 cents for each of your trips. But it's also, the area immediately around Cork in the city center is so walkable that like that is always a total good option too.
Mm.
I
I
second
have
that.
Yeah, the Leaf card's great. And I have a bike, and that's like the best thing ever. I love biking in the city. So quick. And walking, definitely.
And I would say too, one thing that I discovered just in the last, I was over about a month or so ago, and if you do need to get a taxi, there are a couple of different rideshare services in Ireland. I think what is it, Free Now is one of them, but Uber also works in Ireland as well. So I used both of those during my last trip, which I found was super convenient. Um, so there's that. And oh yeah, Ruth, about the Leap card, I was just going to say I have my one that I got in Dublin a million years ago, and I use it in Cork the very few times that I've needed to use the bus. Like Callie, like you, I walk everywhere. And I used to live in New York City, so that's just kind of my vibe. But I would absolutely agree with what you've all been saying about how Cork is such a nice, walkable city. Like there are different transportation modes that you can choose from, but I'd say more often than not, you're just going to be using the power of your own 2 feet. So invest in some comfy walking shoes if you haven't already. Um, Excellent. So we're getting pretty close to our time. So I'm gonna just kind of check to see if there are any. I'm gonna do my best to get to all of the questions. Let's see, students. Maybe to start get us into closing out, we'll say, what would be your biggest piece of advice to yourself, to like those of us who are in your shoes now where you were a year ago? What would you say to the audience about, how what your advice, what your advice would be? All right, Lee, I'm going to pick on you first. Sorry.
No worries. My biggest piece of advice is just really put yourself out there. Like, don't get discouraged. Um, Join clubs, go to events, talk to people. Really make the effort to make friends because I think that's what has uh, got me every opportunity I've had has been my network, my friends, having people, building your own community, particularly when you're really far away from home, like building a community of people that people will make you soup when you're sick, will give you a ride to the airport, like stuff like that is really important. So I definitely would really emphasize. UCC has a lot of really cool societies. Like for example, I'm in a queer choir in Cork that I joined like when I first arrived, and it's been a great community as well. Um, Going to shows, like whatever you're interested in, sports is really big here. Um, and just, even if it does take you a little bit to get used to the culture, like don't give up, keep trying, keep putting yourself out there. Meet as many people as you can and make as many connections as you can, and you'll find your people.
And Callie, and then Parrish.
I would say to come in with kind of an open mind of like, you might have expectations of you're gonna come here and you're gonna love it and you're gonna want to stay forever. Um, or you might be coming in as like, I'm really scared. This was the only program that accepted me, so I need to like make the best of it. And I don't know if I'm gonna like it. And like I think that there's a healthy medium between those two of like, you don't you coming over here, it's not commitment of you have to stay in Ireland for the rest of your life, but at the same time, it's not you're not limiting yourself to just a year. There are options both ways.
Mm.
But if you come in expecting things are going to go exactly according to this specific plan that I have in my head, like there's a good chance that you're going to be disappointed just because that's just kind of how life works is things are never going to go exactly as you plan. So kind of being able to come in and be flexible and be open to whatever sort of comes your way, I think is a good mindset to have as you take this step.
Yeah, I'd say some advice I would have given myself at the beginning is um, I think I think it's been really important for me, like getting to know my professors, and to me, the most important reason why I'm here is academic, and so I only have class 2 times a week, but I feel like I've dug into it to the point where I've stretched it out for a whole week, and I meet with my professors. I'm involved with my work placement. I'm trying to make a creative writing group for the summer when we have our dissertation, because we have no class over the summer from April until end of August when the dissertation is due. There's no class. So technically you don't have to be in Ireland, and I will. That's something that maybe creative writing people might be wanting to hear. Um, is it's structured in semester 1, semester 2, and then the summer is kind of independent. So I think just to me, like learning how to manage, I haven't been in school for a while, so like learning how to be a student again and make the most of it and get to know my professors and classmates and yeah, just to have confidence with my writing because that's why I'm here. Um, that would have been my advice to myself at the beginning. So,
Thank you. And thank you, all three of you for staying up a little late to
oh, I have more
share. Oh yeah.
advice.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
go for it.
Sorry. I know that was very academic focused, and this is about international office. My main advice is don't worry so much because I'm such an anxious person, and I feel like I'm so on top of everything, like usually to like the most type A point. And I feel like being here has like taught me to relax a little bit, that everything's going to work out, and it really will. Things will work out. Like there's a lot of people here who will help you. Um, like things here take there it happens a little slower, I find. Like you get your email later. You like I wasn't getting emails about class starting till like 5 days before, and I was kind of freaking out a little bit. Like you just hear from your professors later than you would think. You find out information later than you think. You kind of just have to be like, okay, I'm along for the ride, if that makes sense. And you just have to trust that people know what they're doing and they will get back to you. And yes, you are a student and there will be class on Monday, even though you haven't heard about it yet until a few days beforehand. Um,
Yeah. I always tell
Um,
myself, like, people have graduated from this program before. It works. It's fine. Like, the school is not new. They're not still figuring things out. They have a method, and like it has worked out in the past, and it's going to continue to work.
I would
that's
just
great.
add
Yeah.
add one thing there as well, because you're talking about the academics, so representing the college. I hope you'd agree that all the professors are really approachable, really friendly, and they really do welcome the international students into their class. They really look forward to it and the diversity and impact you have on the class. So I know from speaking personally with the professors, they really love that having the international students in their classes, and they are so well connected. They really, really want to pass on connections and pass it forward and make introductions in whatever industry you pursue after your 1 year master's. So just wanted to add that as well for anybody.
Thank you, Colette. And Ruth, do you have any parting words before we wrap things up and let everybody go off on their evening?
Just to mention, because it's coming up a lot in the chat, registration in Ireland happens very late. And I know Paris just mentioned it there now, and some of the other students, it happens very late. And there's a few people asking, and it's just to do with the, student records and examination. There's a lot of things that need to go into place before we open registration. So it's kind of mid-August up to, as Paris says, nearly, depending on the program, up to a week before you start. So just bear that in mind. Note just that, we'll be doing loads of pre-arrival webinars before you come, and we'll be covering topics like immigration and things like opening a bank account, which you can do before you come. So I think the link has gone in there to some of the workshops we did this year, but we're doing a few more starting in July, and then we're going to have a full global welcome week for you guys the first week in September this year. So a full week of workshops. So you'll get all that information by email. So yeah, looking forward to meeting you all when you come to
The
UCC.
international office is so helpful, and you should go there if you have any problem. They even have SIM cards.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. That is all. Parrish, that is a perfect segue because what I was going to say was, we are here as a resource for you, and I'm an extension of the international office over here in the United States. So this was just a taster to kind of get the conversation started. And myself, Colette, Ruth, and then Parrish, Callie, and Lee have all volunteered their time. So please reach out to us. I'm going to follow up tomorrow morning Eastern time with kind of the resources that we discussed, as well as contact information for Colette and Ruth and myself. And if Lee Parrish and Callie are happy to share their contact info as well, I can do that. And then, any other questions that I might have missed, please accept my apologies. And I'm always happy to continue the conversation on from here. My virtual door is always open. So with that, I am going to close things out and say a big thank you to everybody on the Cork side, on the Ireland side for staying up late. And thank you to all of you for taking time out of your day to join us. And I hope we get to talk to you again soon. But have a great night and can't wait to see you in Cork. Take care, everyone.
All right.